Welcome to Trailblaze, where I introduce you to some of the innovators and game changers that you should know. Over the past 2 decades, as a founder, investor, and host, I've had the privilege of meeting incredible individuals that are having a positive impact on the world. Join me as I sit with these leaders and innovators that are trailblazing their own path as they share their stories of the resilience built and the wisdom gained along the way. Enjoy the episode. Arlene, thank you so much for coming today and joining us. I am obviously honored to call you now a friend for, over 15 years. I've learned so much from you as a thought leader, an amazing marketer, a visionary entrepreneur, best-selling author. The list goes on and on and on.
Stop. No.
But keep going, yeah. As a woman that has been in powerful positions, and put yourself in so many leadership positions over the course of your career, how have you navigated personal and professional relationships in the face of naysayers, doubters, judgments, perceptions, real or bad, good or what? How have you managed?
Well, start by saying thanks for talking to me, Tony. Every time we talk, my mind ends up spinning 5,000 directions because you have so much insight into what's going on in the world. And I've always loved and will continue to always love your energy and enthusiasm for life and for making a difference in the world. So thanks for having me on. Navigating it first of all, I'd say there's a couple pieces to that. You have to navigate as a female, and then you have to navigate as an older female. As I've aged, I've learned that there's a lot of bias out there. And we can always, there's bias everywhere we look, no matter who we are. There's going to be bias against white men. There's bias against women. There's bias against, different races, different religions. There's bias everywhere. And so what you have to do to navigate it, both personally and professionally, is find that inner confidence that says, I have a right to an opinion. I have a right to a voice. I won't be stifled simply because somebody else thinks that what I have to say is not valuable. And that takes practice, and it takes for me, it's taken a little bit of time. I wasn't as good at it when I was younger. I was more susceptible to other people's views of me. Although I, in fairness, I still am. I think we all have a sense of, do people like me, and do they listen to me? Am I stupider than they are? I think we always have those insecurities, but you have to be able to push those down, or you will never be able to have a voice that is heard. And so I think I've learned to be less afraid. I still can be afraid, but I am less afraid of expressing my opinion than I used to be. And so how I've navigated it professionally is to really know what I'm talking about. I know what I know. And so I'm confident in my knowledge, and I've learned to, even when I'm wrong, to be able to assert an opinion and be okay with being wrong, but to not let that stop me from having an opinion, whatever that is. On the personal side, it's very different. I think I've said to you before, and I'll say it again, that men always say, I'm very much, I'm very traditional in my relationship model. So I think about men as saying that they love to be with powerful women, but they really don't.
Right.
not the ones I've met.
The truth comes out.
The truth comes out. And maybe they do. And I think there's also as I said, that's the female bias, and then there's the age bias. And I think age bias happens whether you're young or whether you're old. This notion that because I'm younger, I'm not taken seriously, and because I can't express myself, which is what I felt when I was younger. And as I'm older, this notion that you no longer have value to society because you're aging. It's a very female thing, Tony. You will not experience this.
Interesting.
You'll be a silver fox. I'll just be an older woman. And it's things like that. It's that kind of nomenclature and judgment labeling that happens that really pushes you down and can be very debilitating mentally, because you start to believe the story yourself. You start to say, well, maybe I am, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Men at my age and stage are at the height of their career. Women at my age and stage should be, exiting. And it's very different.
But on that point, though, you've continued to completely crush it. Okay, so I do want to talk about younger women and your experiences younger, but just for the moment on the age-related challenge. So that for women that are, let's call it in their 50s and 60s and call it later in their career, that are being dismissed, you've obviously not been. If anything, your power and influence and leadership roles have skyrocketed in the last 10, 15 years. So how have you been able to get around that bias against you that's embedded? Why? And I do agree it's pervasive. I mean, I can feel it as well, and I see it as well. But you've obviously blown right through it.
Partly because I'm an entrepreneur, I can do that. I think if I was in a corporate environment, it would be more challenging, to be frank. I think you would have more headwinds pushing against you. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're setting your own path, you're charting your own way, you're going through it all, and you're determined to get to your end goal. So I think as an entrepreneur, I never think age stops anybody. I mean, there's so many case studies of incredibly talented people who didn't really start their careers until they were late 40s, 50s, 60s, sometimes in their 70s. And so age is not a barrier to an idea. And age is not a barrier to energy, and age is not a barrier to success. So as an entrepreneur, I just kind of say, why not? I'm going to continue. Like you, I think, I'm going to continue doing what I love. I have found my success has lied at the intersection of my purpose and my passion. And I will never let somebody take that away from me. And that's what's kept me going, I think.
Well, and also I think as an entrepreneur, you're just more energized by every time someone says no, or you're not going to make it, or you're just more energized. There's
I'll
more
show you.
more conviction, more commitment. But then, okay, for somebody in then a corporate role, and it's so interesting that you say that because my sister actually has had that experience. She was at Google as an executive for a long time. She's coming up on 50 years old. She departed. She started to look for something that was in a startup. And it was so interesting for her to see, okay, despite this incredible career as a vice president at Google and a leadership role in tech, and I think you might have met her a couple of times, and she's just an amazing woman and so accomplished, but it was not so easy for her to find a startup to go into, even with that pedigree. And I think she said a lot of the same things that you're saying, which is that I just got to know that I have value to add, because I obviously do.
And find the spot where she can add it, no matter, sorry to interrupt you, but I think about, here's what happens. There's great ideas out there. And let's say a younger entrepreneur has a great idea and goes to raise capital. And somebody says, that's a great idea. Let's put hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. And they put hundreds of millions of dollars behind it. And they expect this young entrepreneur who has no experience, who has no proven skill set in building a business to be successful. And when they fail, the investors are angry. Instead of going, well, maybe that person needed to have some support around them of seasoned individuals and people who have been there, done that. So we lose the thread sometimes that it is a combination of age, youth, and exuberance, and innovation, and experience. And your sister will find somebody who looks at her experience and says, I want that, or she's got to do her own thing because she's too damn smart not to. Right. So she'll figure it out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know she will. I know she will.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so going back to the younger Arlene that had the self-doubt from the judgments of like, how can this young woman really know what she's talking about, and all the bias and judgments and unconscious bias even that, men have, and then even other women have, navigating that. What did you feel like were the critical success factors for you?
I separate myself from a confidence level in two ways. I think about myself professionally as very confident because I've learned to, when I was younger, I learned to just have an opinion and say it. And sometimes I didn't even realize what was happening around me. I was very naive. Maybe my naivety allowed me to be a little bit more vocal than somebody else might have been. But I also had no education past my grade 12. And so I always felt like I needed to kind of continually learn so that I could have an opinion that was valid. And so I am still continue to be a lifelong learner. I really believe in that. So younger, I would learn, I would say something, I would test it, I would try. I didn't even know really what I was doing. I was just kind of pushing out there, and I was trying to put food on the table. So at the end of the day, Tony, like, you'll do whatever you have to do to put food on the table.
Yeah.
But then I've got my personal insecurities. So I have a lot of personal insecurities, and I don't know what it is. Like, I can stand on a stage in front of 10,000 people and have a conversation and give a speech and be fine because I'm talking about subject matter stuff that I know. But when it's somebody, when the spotlight is just on me and I'm feeling conscious of, like I'm at a social event or something, and I'm feeling conscious of the way I look or the way I appear, I kind of just like, I'd rather just go home and pull the covers over my head.
Interesting. You have an introverted side of you that comes out, or just an anxiety that comes out?
Both. I'm introverted. I've got anxiety. I suffer from anxiety attacks. I have panic attacks. And what you have to do is you have to kind of go, why? What is it that's stopping me? And I think that because I've been single now for quite a while, I think I've had to do a lot of introspection to figure out what it is that who I am, and get comfortable with myself and be okay with. And again, age is a good thing. You kind of go, sometimes you go, how did that person appear? That's not who I am. I'm still thinking like a 30-year-old, but I am a 60-year-old, 67 years old. And I think you kind of, it's about your energy, your enthusiasm, but you always carry with you an insecurity. All of us have, you have insecurities,
Yes, everyone.
Tony. We
Yeah,
all have an
everyone.
insecurity. And we are so busy judging who we are on the inside to what we see on other people's outsides that we think that they're better than we are. And we have to, as women in particular, I think we have to get past that and realize that we have so much to offer. And simply because somebody looks better on the outside does not mean that they are better as humans, as contributors, as people.
I mean, you took over venture communications, I guess, sometime you joined, you became sole owner after some number of years, built that business and built a family at the same time. And many people would say, have had it all. Have done it all as an amazingly successful woman, personally and professionally. The younger Arlene that was facing those headwinds, those insecurities, the anxiety, you just powered through that. And I think that's what many young women that look up to you today would be saying, like, how did she do that? Like that they're trying to get that resilience. And this is a word I know that we both talk about a lot to younger people. Like, you had that resilience. Was it well, obviously wasn't just inside you. You developed it over a period of time through experiences. So was it taking the negatives, taking the shots and turning those into positives? Was it not letting stuff get internalized too much when there was some kind of external exogenous factor? Like, what do you think got you through those when you look back now, and obviously with the perfect hindsight that you have?
Yeah, I think it would be partly that I had an immigrant mentality. We were raised as immigrants to the country to rely heavily on our work ethic to help us put food on the table. And so I was raised that it was my job to take care of myself. It wasn't society's job to take care of me. And so there was a deeply ingrained sense of gratitude for the country and the opportunity. And there was a deeply ingrained sense of obligation to do what I could to make the best of that opportunity. And so that was foundational for me. I also was raised to love life. I can tell you I was raised to get up every day and say, what were you grateful for? How can you be generous today? These are the things that I was taught. Now, having said that, it may look like I was super successful and all those things happened, but it was really hard. Tony, I was getting up. We didn't have any money. We grew up below the poverty line. There was nothing in our lives. And so this desire to make sure we could survive overtook everything. And so when you say, how do you do it? When somebody asks me that, I always say, it wasn't that I was getting up and saying, I have a choice today. Should I work and put food on the table, or should I stay home and do something else?
Right.
It was like,
Yeah,
no, you better go work and
Right.
put food on the table, right? So there was this need to take care of my 4 children and to take care of myself, and nobody was there. There was no there was no security net. Nobody was saying, well, if you fail, we'll take care of you. It's okay. So I think it was circumstance. It was the time I grew up in. It was my value system that I was raised with, and it was just a deep desire to I never want to die, and whenever I do die, with this thought of, oh my God, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I try? What was I afraid of? And so pushing through fear is something I do every day. Like, what am I afraid of? Somebody might say no to me. Okay, so, like, so what? Or somebody might laugh at me. Okay, so what? And so you have to kind of push yourself through to what's the worst thing that could happen. And my dad always used to tell me that when I was worried about what other people thought of me, and I think this is very heightened when you're younger, you're always concerned with social construct and whether people, think you're beautiful, think you're smart, think you're anything, because I think that's just a hormonal age thing that happens. My dad used to say to me when I was younger he said, Arlene, you would be a lot less worried about what other people thought of you if you knew how little they did.
What a great lesson.
Yeah, what a great lesson.
And so true. right?
So true. People are not consumed with each other. They're consumed with themselves.
Consumed with themselves.
Yeah.
But I think that there's so much to learn for young people in that, in this idea of resilience. And yours was born maybe out of scarcity. People maybe get it from other sources. Some people maybe have some of it innately. You obviously did too. But I know that there's a whole lot of energy going into our, today into these founder ecosystems, venture ecosystems, you with Venture Park, and you have to try to help people build resilience. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone has the formula for this. And so I like to talk about, stories like yours in terms of resilience, even stories like mine in terms of resilience, because people are struggling to feel like they have the capability to power through these things. And I don't know that anyone has the answer, or that there's even one answer, actually. And it might be a very personal thing, actually.
I feel so many times. Like, I think resilience doesn't mean you don't fail. Like, resilience doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It makes you do, and you keep going. And I think the need and the desire to keep going does wane sometimes. It can be... Sometimes, I don't know about you, Tony, but like I said, I've been in my bed with the covers pulled over my head,
I don't want to move today.
Don't want to move today. I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? It's not worth it. You go through that litany of things, and then you think about the impact you're having. And not just on me, because I rarely think about the impact for myself. I'm thinking about, but if I stop doing this, then all these people will lose their jobs, or not that I'm indispensable, or something, who's going to fill the spot, who's going to make sure it happens, just like you, when you were doing wind, if not you, who?
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah.
It was you.
Yeah.
You had to.
Well, right? And on that point of resilience, I remember a day that there was a headline in the Globe and Mail that said, "Wind is dead." There was like, we'd lost the regulatory battle. And that was one of those days where I was like, do I actually want to get out of bed right now and go and talk to the team, who are all like, should we go look for a job? I mean, is it over? Should I come to work today? Like, and you're absolutely right. Those are moments that are very difficult, right? But you need to find it within yourself to keep going, because if not you, then who? And that is, but to say that it's just sort of like an easy thing, I think you and I both would say to people, it's not an easy thing. It's at those moments so that you have a choice to keep going or not. And unfortunately, many people don't.
Yeah, right? And if you think about what's going on in the world today, this notion of resilience for humanity and the ability to see that we can get through the challenges of the world, this is getting lost because we don't have confidence in our leadership, because we don't see. So resilience comes when you believe that you have some, like there's something to hope for. I think resilience is founded on hope. Like, if you don't have hope, you're not going to be resilient.
Right.
If you don't believe you can get through
Totally
this crap
agree.
for something good, then why do it, right? So we all need hope. And so resilience is getting chipped away at because there isn't a lot of hope in the world right now. And I think this is something our leaders need to think deeply about, which is, where is the hope for the future? Where are our younger generations feeling that there is an opportunity to create something that's going to be meaningful in a world that they don't think is going to exist because of
climate
wars, etc. So why be resilient? Why care? And so resilience is hope in my mind.
I don't know that we have leadership in many countries that are going to be inspirational in that regard. But I think we get hope for the best, right? So I want to switch gears to
or you're going to run,
right? You more positive. No, you've been an incredibly good brand builder, personal brand builder, and business brand builder. As a marketer and as a sort of an emerging founder, when you think about how you navigated building your personal brand and the milestones along the way, success factors along the way, what advice can you offer emerging founders about when they think about their personal brand and their personal brand journey?
2 words: radical authenticity.
Okay.
Because if you can be authentic and you can have authenticity at the heart of everything you do, you will draw people to you. You'll be able to identify what you do and don't know and get help where you don't know it. I think it just leads to so many things. There was a study done, a medical study done on the energy of emotions that we give off and the power of those emotions. So they studied hate and fear and, name all the different emotions.
Right.
And so question is, what do you think is the most powerful emotion? People would generally say love. Love is the most powerful emotion that we can give off. It emits all sorts of energy towards other people. It's not, it's authenticity. So authenticity is what draws investors to you. It's what draws supporters in the team to you. It's what makes people believe in you. It's what gives you hope. So I think back to that hope word, but I think it's radical authenticity.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And one of the things I think that radical authenticity would also just creates naturally is humility.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mindfulness, awareness,
everything.
right? Yeah. It's so, and there's such a beautiful place to be when you have the confidence to be humble in the face of, everything going on around you. Right. I think that gives you the openness to learning so much more than you otherwise would.
So Tony, you demonstrate that. I think for the sake of this podcast, which is about Trailblazers, what I would say that you do so well is you've got this confidence, and maybe this is where, I look to you and I go, wow, there's somebody who just knows what his purpose in life is. He's got confidence.
Oh, thank you.
You demonstrate all of these things, but you also have a humility when things did go bad. When Wind is Dead headlines came out, you also, I remember talking to you in those times and you saying, I'm just going to get up and I'm going to solve it. And you didn't, I thought, man, that's courageous. It's inspiring, but I also know how hard it was to do.
But it was having support system of them and relationships with people around me, which you were a part of in that era.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that that's something that people really need to spend time on, is in investing in these powerful and important relationships in your life. Right. Yeah. When you really need friends, that you have them. Yeah. And there was an amazing moment in my life where there were 4 or 5 conversations that you and I had, in person.
Yeah.
And you were an amazing support for me, right? So I feel like that, and there was just such rational advice from you at the time, and how to keep things in perspective and be calm about it, and be rational about it, and that you're on the side of consumers, and that's a good thing, and that's a reason to exist, and so all of those things came in conversations, right? In this example, it was you that cared about the outcome for me as a true friend. Yeah. And I think that that's what's kind of missing a lot today, is I think people are not investing enough in these really strong relationships that you will need in your journey at some point, right? And have reciprocity in them, right? People will need you too, right? And I just feel like that's lost somehow now.
No,
am I missing that? There just seems to be less emphasis on it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I recently did a consolidation of marketing firms and PR firms and created a company called Believeco. And the reason we called it Believeco was that we believe that relationships are at the center of anybody's success. Because if you believe in somebody and you help them think their dream is real, if in fact you do, you can't, again, back to radical authenticity. You're not going to say, I think your idea is great, and going, what the
yeah, well, yeah, how dumb, yeah,
this is
forget
the
about it.
Yeah. I mean, assuming that you can be authentic and genuine in the process. The whole idea of Believeco was founded on this notion that relationships are not just about friendships, but it's about relationship to each other. It's about our relationship to our communities, our relationship to the world, our relationship to, the friends we have. We are in relationship always of other things. And the more we understand how much we need those other things to survive, the better off we are. So I love what you're saying. I think that's a really good insight.
And so it's sort of like an amazing skill and capability, I think, that you have, I think that I have, is where we've in our lifetimes sort of identified what would be really valuable relationships, establish them with people, and then maintain them. Yeah. Right. And so when you look at even the journey of our friendship has been 16, whatever, how many, I don't know, 15 plus whatever years, a long 12. Time. Yeah. Okay. A long time.
I still remember you picking me up in your truck, thinking, "Wow, this guy's got a really nice car." Yeah. I mean, we were going to a business thing or something.
We had a nice business meeting, whatever, and that it could have been it, right? But now here we are, 15 years later, and so there's an opportunity for people to recognize that establishing and maintaining really powerful relationships in your life really do come around to pay dividends for you personally and professionally, and are immensely rewarding when you can contribute back to someone that you care about, right? And I just feel like creating that whole ecosystem for yourself is something that people need to focus a lot more on.
Yeah. And sometimes you may find that people come in and out of your life and provide that friendship at a moment in time, and yet you both move on. You aren't friends forever, So I think it is also about realizing where people can intersect with your life. Not necessarily, you might necessarily be friends with them forever, but I remember when my company, when Venture went through a real struggle when there was a flood in Calgary and we almost lost the business.
I remember that.
And I remember thinking, what am I going to do? And talking to you and talking to a couple other people and getting, again, advice that helped me through it in a way that nobody else could have. I didn't feel comfortable saying to anyone else, oh my gosh, I'm about to go bankrupt on this business. Luckily, for me, it wasn't my only business, but it was like important to me because I related to it just like you did with wind. So I love the notion of what you're talking about. And if you're going to trailblaze, you need friends, you need relationships, you need authenticity, you need hope, you need to feel like, you need a little bit of courage, and you need a lot of confidence that you probably aren't feeling.
Right. When you think about all the noise that's out there today, all the social, and I do want to talk about your path on social media because I think you've been obviously immensely successful at it. But for younger emerging people starting their careers, founders, going into corporate life, not-for-profit, government, whatever, academia, whatever walk of life, there's so much noise. Mm-hmm. What do you think people need to do to sort of pick what they're going to listen to and when and how much? And you think about what's out there, you could spend, and people do sadly, spend a huge amount of their life consuming garbage on social, on news, on fake news, on politics, on whatever. That's not really enabling them to contribute positively back to the world in any real way. And if anything, putting them in a negative, spiral. How do they cut through it?
I've been spending a lot less time on social media lately, like a lot less, because I found that when I got on it, it was this deep hole, this deep black hole of, and I'd look up and suddenly an hour has gone by or 2 hours have gone by. And then I think, what did I really just accomplish? Like,
right.
What did I really watch here? And I gave myself a talking to the other day thinking, I could have learned Spanish in that time. I could have picked up Rosetta Stone. I could have figured out how to learn a language. I could have figured out how to become an artist. Yeah. There's so much I could have done. Yeah. And all I was doing was watching people create things that have no meaning to me. Right. And don't make me a better person. Right. And so it's so easy to get trapped in it because our attention spans are shortening. We're judging ourselves by what we're seeing on the internet. None of it's so fake. The filters and it's a
disaster.
It's so not radical authenticity.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Yeah, the opposite.
But that.
Yeah.
And so you have to ask yourself what it is you're seeking. Are you seeking entertainment? Are you seeking distraction? Are you seeking something to fill your time? And if it's something to fill your time, then I would suggest then there's so many problems or opportunities in the world that time could be better served spending. But it's hard. We are wired for the dopamine that it gives us. We are wired, the algorithms that are feeding us things to buy, telling us what we want, serving up opinions that are similar to ours, so it becomes an echo chamber.
Yes.
Very hard to extract yourself from.
It is.
I quit Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I know we've talked about this. But I had 400,000 followers. So it wasn't an easy decision to make, but in the end, it really was an easy decision to make.
Really?
Because there was nothing of value I was getting on there other than the news, and the news I can find anywhere. The news can be served up to me through papers, through news, through journalists who are on other platforms who I can follow or subscriptions I can take and make. And yes, there are more right-wing and left-wing papers out there, or media that's out there, but it's not as extreme unless you are going, sure, there's extreme media out there too, but I don't need it. I don't care what's trending in the world today because I'm going to know pretty quickly what's trending in the world today through all the other places that I am.
But the 400,000 people were really looking to you. Yeah. They were engaged, and because I followed you, and you were using it really as a platform to talk about a lot of things that you care about.
I was.
So that must not have been easy to walk away from.
I was trying to be positive. I was trying to be positive all the time on there, and I just found that in being positive, it was killing my positivity. It was draining me. It was because I'm an introvert. I found like I was draining myself constantly on there. I was feeling constantly drained. And we all need to find nourishment somewhere that keeps us energetic and positive. And that place was just taking me into
taking out,
it was
flowing
taking,
out of you.
It was taking. And I felt bad about leaving those followers. And I hope that they'll find me in other platforms because I'm now on Threads and I'm on everywhere else. LinkedIn has become a big platform for me. And I think there's other places, but social media is not really media. You know, I mean, it's not really, it's not news. It's media. It's content. It's for the sake of commerce. It's not for the sake of journalistic integrity.
No, that's become
so
clear. Sadly, it's become very clear. Yeah.
So it was easy to quit at the end of the day. I haven't regretted it. I've gone on twice since I left 4 months ago, and I think it was only because a link took me there because I was looking at something and a link took me into it. And I took like 2 seconds on. I went, no.
I know why I left.
Yeah.
And so for other people thinking about building their social platforms and social channels as they build their personal and their business brands, do you think there's like a silver bullet now? Is there one platform is it LinkedIn? Is it still Instagram? Like what's your go-to for people that are just starting out?
LinkedIn is definitely, in terms of being a facilitator of learning, I'd say for an entrepreneur, LinkedIn's a very good platform. Although I have found lately it's a bit of the humble brag on LinkedIn. Yeah. You know, I started off poor and now I'm rich. You know, if you follow these 10 steps, you can be too. You know, like there's a lot of.
Oh yeah, I mean everyone's a personal coach
yes,
now. This is like I can't believe it.
Yes.
What I'm reading this stuff, I'm just like.
I know it is a little bit. It has shifted recently. But maybe that's the whole point that none of these platforms are going to last forever because they eventually the community hopefully takes care of itself and says this isn't serving me anymore. I think you have to be on a variety of platforms. I think you have to be open to all of it. But at the same time, nothing is going to beat creating relationships in the real world. Nothing. And so I think you need to make sure you're still doing that old-fashioned networking and you know, you're figuring out kind of who you want to hang with and be with. And that you're not going to get that on social media. I've created a few friends on social media who I've met in person. And I went, I think I could be your friend.
As advertised? That's what I expected.
As advertised, it's rare. It's rare.
When you think about I guess it's been 15 years that you've been doing television now or more?
18 years.
18 years, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so Dragon's Den that's got to be one of the longest running shows. So that's been obviously incredible in terms of your personal brand. Do you think it's helped your business a lot? And do you think that television is still a medium that you're excited about? And has it enabled you really to have the platform to make constructive contributions to the world like you've always envisioned doing?
Television changed my life. Like there's no 2 ways about it. I would not have the platform. I don't believe I would have the platform I have if I didn't have the exposure I've had to millions of Canadians. I don't think I would have. Now maybe I would have. Maybe I would have taken that energy and time into something else and become famous in a different way. I don't know. But is TV dead? No, because TV's consumed in this. It's consumed on our tablets. It's content, you know, whether it's served up on a television station, and now we're binge watching things that networks are putting out. So I don't think television's dead by any stretch of the imagination. How we're consuming it is different. But without TV, back then when I went on the show, it was a bit of a lark. You know, do this for a year and see, you know, there's no way this show's ever going to survive. There was 250,000 people a year watching it, you know, and it went on to become the #1 show in Canada. It went on to get millions of viewers every week at Beat Hockey Night in Canada. It was like at the prime, it was like insane. And that gave me a platform I never, ever, ever in the world would have expected. Like, so fame, I'm embarrassed by it. I don't really like it. I feel like very self-conscious of it. But I love that I get to go talk to people about what matters to me. I love that I can have these conversations. I enjoy speaking to women about how hard it is to raise money, how hard it is to be a female, how hard it is to do many things, but how much opportunity there is in it being hard and how we grow through it being hard. So yeah, TV's just, it's been a blessing.
I think you've amazingly used it for good.
Yeah.
And I think that for many people setting out, I think that you set out with, I'm going to make this an integral part of my life and use it for good. And I think maybe a lot of people set out with not such positive intentions around it. And so maybe the outcomes are not the same.
Maybe, but Tony, I will tell you, like television, I was older when if I had had this kind of recognition when I was younger, I often look at the other dragons and think of, if I had had that kind of fame and attention when I was younger, what would I have done with it? Would I have been able to deflect it, or would I have started to relate to it? But I was older, and I also think that Angelina Jolie has had an influence on me because, and a few people whose work I respect in the world. And, she was the one who said, fame is only good if I could deflect it onto purpose. And I loved that. I loved the notion of that, because what is fame good for? Like getting reservations at a restaurant? Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
But, in Canada, it's not good for much, right. I can tell you that. But it is good for being able to deflect the attention to things that
something
count.
You care about and making a positive contribution. Yeah, I think that's amazing. So when you think about now, the future for Arlene from here, what are you most excited about going into 2024 and beyond?
So many things. I don't like to think too far ahead. Like I'm not. People say, "Oh, do you get like?" I know, Tony, you've got a routine that I really respect. Like I am not a routine person. Like I don't wake up at 4 and go to the gym for 5 hours. Like I don't do that stuff. Have a smoothie, all that stuff. I probably should.
I feel like you do more of that than you let on.
No, yeah, I'm not as disciplined. I think I'm more lazy than anything. But I think the future for me is going to be filled with still the joy of the unexpected. I still look to wonder what's next. Like I really want to focus obviously on like Believeco as an organization is really important because it's doing amazing things in the marketing communications world, and I'd like to see what happens with that. The fund is my purpose. The fund is number one. Like the fund is what I do and what I care, because it helps entrepreneurs in a way that is really important to me.
And taking advantage of all your pedigree, experience, relationships, expertise. Yeah. I mean, it's like everything that you're amazing at.
So those two things are very important. But I would say that the thing that's the most important to me is, somebody asked me the other day, I think they asked on the show, what would I do if I had a time machine? Where would I go? And if I had a time machine, I'd want to go into the future to see my grandkids, because I'd love to see what happens with the lineage and how kind of, what you're doing now, the seeds we're planting today, not just with my family, but with these businesses and with the people I support and the friends I have. I'd love to see the seeds of that grow. So in my lifetime, I hope I can see more and more of the results of the effort being made. And our country being stronger and better. In our businesses being healthier and useful in society, and my friendships being more meaningful.
Amazing. Arlene, thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Trailblaze. Would love to hear from you. Tweet me or comment on LinkedIn or Instagram and share what you took away from this episode. This show was produced by Creator Club Studios. You can start creating today at creatorclubstudios.com.